We're going to be reacting to Willie's video. I just want my favorite game to be an MMORPG again. Now, a lot of people have been playing World of Warcraft. There's been burnout, frustration. People have been in this weird antsy state because of the constant seasonal model, losing your progress, moving on to another game, and the constant fluctuation of how you get to play Classic. But let's see what Willie had to say. We're going to dive right into the video and take a look at that.
Fresh, seasonal, reruns, error. Classic World of Warcraft started off its life again in 2019 as an MMORPG, but over time it's evolved to be something a bit different, and it's not really followed along what MMORPGs typically do so far. And for me,
I just want to say right there real quick, in regards to season, era, anniversary, and these constant re-releases, pretty much most MMOs are seasonal. But the seasons are typically whole expansions, right? You play all of Wrath of the Lich King to go into Cataclysm. So Wrath is a season, Cataclysm season, MOP is a season. But right now with Classic, it's the seasonality of the game isn't even seasonality. It's pure just FOMO in a way that when you play a game, you lose everything pretty much soon after. So you hit all those metrics, and then the game's done for and you go next. And that's the problem with Classic, is the seasonality isn't even a permanent sense of seasonality. You don't get to keep your stuff from the previous expansion. If you're going from Cataclysm to MOP, you do. MOP to Worlds of Draenor, you will. But it's definitely not a thing that is well looked on by a huge portion of the community and, just gamers in general. Seasonal gameplay is running its course.
The real point of this video is I feel as though it's time for Classic to go back to being what an MMO should be. A game that receives consistent updates, regular class balancing, a present that's enjoyable to play, and a future which is unknown to be excited about. And MMOs tend to need this progression eventually, because a big hook with them has always been that you can go away and then come back later and continue onwards. We almost had this, up till recently, but now it appears as though we're going back to how Classic has been for a while now. So I want to talk about the different versions of Classic that exist at the moment and how they're kind of, a bit different from what's expected usually from an MMO, and why I think it's time for...
All I want is Classic Plus. All these other versions of the game right here. We had regular Classic 2019, now we have Era. We have Cataclysm, which was the original Classic, into TBC, into Wrath, into Cataclysm, now it's MOP. We had Season of Mastery, and then we had Season Discovery, and they're both dead. Season Discovery, I think, is under 12,000 players now. 12,900 players. I am terrified to see where the direction of the game goes right now. Season Discovery will probably be under 5,000 active players by Thursday this week. And that's a travesty for a game that once had 500,000 active raiders. A lot of them may have been alts, but 500k down to 5k. It's like that one Call of Duty meme. This place used to have millions of people. Now it's a ghost town. Or whatever the fucking meme was. Hardcore's hardcore. It's not the biggest deal. Hardcore can always coexist. But every other version of Classic needs to just straight up fucking die. So we can just get Classic Plus and leave Hardcore and an Era server on the side. We don't need so many versions of Classic. So many versions of the game where everybody is disconnected from each other, disconnected from the game, disconnected from how it plays and experiences. There is so much fatigue to Classic, and it feels disappointing almost.
A bit different from what's expected usually from an MMO, and why I think it's time for Classic to go back to its roots. For the modern Classic games, I'm a bit uncertain of their future beyond Mists of Pandaria. Warlords of Draenor might happen, and maybe Legion as well, but we're definitely starting to get into more feature-heavy expansions, where there would be a lot for Blizzard to do in order to get those expansions working properly again. And I think despite the new expansions really opening up endgame beyond just raiding or PvP, in Classic people are really sticking to those two areas of content above anything else. I don't think Classic is really tapping into that collection and completionism crowd nearly as well as retail does, and I think there's a mix of reasons here as to why. Maybe people played it back in the day and they already did a bunch of this. They don't know how long these servers will...
The reason Classic doesn't have the completionism mindset is because everybody's expecting their shit to get deleted at some point. People are just playing now to have fun and move on. that completionism doesn't exist, because what point do you have to chase these goals and ideals when you're terrified of all your work being ended? The amount of sod players I know that just straight up quit the game, not even move to MOP or Anniversary, just straight up quit. They left the game and are playing other things because that seasonality, that seasonal mindset has just fucking fried them. Retail had the benefit of collecting transmog, mounts, pets, because it built upon that slowly. It built upon the legacy of World of Warcraft as a forever game that's never dying. And then you have Chris Metanevia talking about 17.0 as an expansion. We're on 11.2 right now. My man's thinking about expansion 6 expansions ahead of time, whereas we in the classic ecosystem don't even know if we're getting classic. But I mean, we know we're getting classic, but we've seen the survey, we've seen all the things. But it's leading to this like disconnect in creating a sandbox. All people care about now is the theme park. Get in, ride the train, or the rides, get to the very end, get out, and move about your day. And that is the worst way to play classic WoW. It's why 2019 was so beloved and why the current game is
will be going for. I think a part of the satisfaction with collection or completionism is you know something will be there long term. And with Classic, well, we're advancing through expansions once again faster than they can release. So ultimately, there will be a point where there isn't a long term. It's kind of inevitable. And retail has all this collection stuff already, but with way more quality of life there, and it may be a character you're already invested into. So even if you're more invested in this collection side of the game, I wouldn't be surprised if you just stuck with retail, even if I think Mr. Pandaria opens up this area of the game by so much. And I'm not sure that Mr. Pandaria will end up outperforming Cataclysm. We'll see when people start raiding and what the data will end up being, but by all metrics, Mr. Pandaria should do better than Cataclysm. And I'm saying this as somebody who enjoyed Cata, by the way. I don't think it was nearly as bad as people made out, but Mr. Pandaria for me was the better expansion.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Mr. Pandaria is going to hit some really big numbers. It's probably going to be way more than Anniversary. I would be surprised if it hit 300k, like Cataclysm did in terms of raiders, because that's the only population metric we can look at as raiding numbers. I do not think it'll hit 300k. I'd be surprised if it did. It wouldn't be outlandish. I just don't see it. As I see it right now, Classic Cataclysm was, reviled and hated, yada yada, and it maintained a healthier player base than the rest of Classic's versions. Even more so than SOD, even more so than Anniversary. And I think MOP will be the same. One thing I've come to learn and I've come to realize is that the people playing Mr. Pandaria are playing Mr. Pandaria. The people watching classic WoW videos are not playing Anniversary or Era. They're just upset and angry and aggravated, and like they're frustrated that their favorite game isn't getting the love and attention that needs being met. Whereas MOP players, Cataclysm players, they're just playing the game. They'll look at class guides, they'll look at raid guides, they'll look at how to gold farm and how to collect this, but they're not sitting here coming to videos going, why Cataclysm is dead, why MOP is amazing, why you should play this. They're looking at best tank, best DPS, best healer. And you see the same thing in retail. They're looking forward to how to play the game and the future. They don't give a shit about the negativity. They don't even look at that. And that's something that the classic player base is frustrated with and unable to see, is that with MOP and Cataclysm, they're just playing. They're enjoying the game. They're just there having a good time. Classic Andes, for lack of a better term, they're just frustrated and angry and loud. So it's why it wouldn't be surprising to see MOP do really, really well, is all I'm trying to say.
In terms of the classes, the raids, the available content, and so on. And Blizzard are definitely taking a more hands-on approach to Mists of Pandaria, seeing as now how Season of Discovery is winding down. But I think for a lot of people that Mists of Pandaria Remix would have been a good enough fix of Pandaria for the foreseeable future. And Blizzard have confirmed they're doing Remix for Legion as well.
So I know I've been pausing a lot, but it is a reaction. MOP Remix was really fun. I do not see MOP Classic being anywhere near as fun as MOP Remix. Now, I've been playing MOP Classic. I've been having a good time. It's an enjoyable experience. I'm having a blast. The gameplay is smooth and enjoyable. But I 100% think MOP Remix would have been just fine by itself. I think they could have gone from Cataclysm and Merge Trade into retail would have been just as okay. Now, I'm not going to discount that there is a MOP player base that wants MOP Classic, so we're going to enjoy that. But but WoD Classic, Legion Classic, we're getting a Legion remix. Are we going to be getting a BFA remix or a Shadowlands remix? What's the next remix? And so I'm just really, really curious to see the direction they take the game, the direction they take the community and the world, with the Classic world. Because it seems like there's so many game modes that it's getting frustrating. Oh no, my lobster is too buttery and my steak is too juicy. I know the meme, I get it. But I don't feel like going to Golden Corral is the ideal version of eating. Like, I would rather have a nice restaurant that sit down instead of a buffet. Not that you can't sit down at the buffet, you do sit down, you can have a huge plate of everything, but you go to a buffet, you stuff yourself so much, and then you don't go to a buffet again for years. Or a long time, typically. Hey, it is what it is, let's just move on.
By the way, so if Mr. Pandaria doesn't prove more popular than Cata, would it be worth still pushing through Warlords of Draenor to play Legion, which would have already been remixed as well? I want to see the numbers on this, but it really is just a thought. And long term, I can see Remix replacing more modern classic expansions as a way to revisit them in the short term. As mentioned, we're getting into expansions where there is a lot of new features, and people appear to play these re-releases already in a very seasonal manner. There's a lot of hype straight away, a lot of interest, and then the majority of people drop off pretty shortly thereafter. Remix, however, is getting the retail audience back into older expansions.
So that is an interesting thing that he just mentioned there, is that you could even see it in Cataclysm, where that first 4 or 5 months, 300,000 raiders. Firelands, 150, 160. After Firelands, it just dropped. And Cataclysm was only 15 months long. Mob cards will probably be the same. Huge launch, because people love launches, they love re-releases. Like, I don't know what it is about the mentality. New game, get in. I missed the boat, I'm out. So people jump in, play, grind, thrive, just they do all that random shit and they just experience the game and the world, and then they move on. And then they stop playing, and then they'll come back later. Thank you very much, Kago. I really appreciate that, big dog. I did hit partner. I appreciate you with that Twitch Prime. You fucking legend. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Deep State once again, my brother. Thank you.
And retail audience is good for several reasons. They don't need to try and fix the classes as to how they were back then. You just use whatever the current retail build is. You can implement retail features for collections and so on. You can just put in crazy updates, since it's not supposed to be classic or how it was back in the day, such as with MOP Remix, where people could just solo raids. It creates fear of missing out for extremely difficult to collect items, such as the Tusks of Manoroth, for example, and an invested retail player in the game has more stuff to spend money on because there's just more stuff in the shop. Blizzard know what expansions people loved. It's no surprise for Remix they started with MOP and are now doing Legion. They know what they're doing, and if they're repeating Remix, you can assume that MOP Remix...
But if they knew what they were doing, why is it that they're doing Legion instead of WoD? WoD was where classic shit, WoW retail shit the bed originally. So if they know it's because of this, they know that this is where the badness, the shittiness happens. What is the goal? What is the plan here? Are they just not going to do WoD? Are they just going to go straight from Mr. Pandaria, from MOP, straight all the way into Legion? Or from MOP into retail? Like, if Remix is how they get around things, and this is not to like say Willie said something wrong, he's right, they have a plan here. It looks like the classic pipeline is coming to an end sooner rather than later. And I don't know when they're going to pull the trigger. Is the trigger for ending Classic going to be when they announce Classic Plus at BlizzCon? Is it going to be Legion's last expansion? From Legion we're going to retail? Like, where does Classic end? And where do they put their focus onto the next big Classic thing? And what is the next big Classic thing?
Was good enough to give it a second thumbs up. So that's why I think Remix could be the future of modern Classic after Mr. Pandaria. And as enjoyable as revisiting expansions has been, I don't know how much longer it's going to go on. And I think at some point Blizzard are more or less going to have to transfer our characters to retail at some point in time. This could happen at the end of Mr. Pandaria. But the re-releases of expansions in the modern Classic game from Classic through to Mr. Pandaria at the moment has started to drift off a little bit. And I don't see there being too much
I've said this for a while. but I'm 100%, a billion percent certain that at some point, very, very soon, chat, they are going to end Classic. They're going to push it into retail. It might be the end of MOP. It might be the end of Warlords. It might be the end of Legion. But at some point soon, and I can't tell you all when exactly, they're going to merge Classic progression into retail. And I wonder when that point is going to be. Like, there's a line, and when are they going to hit that line and do the merge? That's the curiosity factor. Is it could be at any point, and nobody would be wrong. There are so many things point that it's going to happen, but the when is completely an unknown.
Long term left in this format. On the seasonal side of things, well, Season of Discovery has now more or less concluded as per of a fairly recent blue post. It's been the longest running version of Classic so far, dropping in November of 2023, so it's had a good run. And though the servers aren't officially ending or anything,
the servers aren't officially ending, but the servers are dead. I'm sorry, that was me being a bit too passionate, but yeah, Season of Discovery is dead. From 78,000 down to 12,900, Season Discovery is gone. It's absolutely dead. There is no more Season Discovery. Season Discovery era being a thing is irrelevant, because nobody's playing on those era servers. You can't even get a raid together. It's definitely like a really bad situation, a really bad time frame, if I'm being real about it. And it's just a travesty. So many versions of Classic, and we don't even have a timeline of what's coming next. I'll leave it there. Let's just keep going.
It's what I'd consider now to be in an error state where you shouldn't expect many.
Also, I did want to add one more thing there. In terms of longevity, I'm pretty sure Season Discovery is the longest experience of Classic since 2019. I think 2019 Classic is the longest, and TBC is second or third, and SOD is second or third, like between TBC and SOD. And I forget which one is longer, because I think one is longer by like 2 months, but I'm not sure which one is longer by 2 months. And the fact that the longest version of Classic since 2019 was Season Discovery is interesting, because it shows that for every other version they had to rush through it so people could enjoy Classic with more things. So you know what that tells me? It means that we need Classic Plus, and Blizzard needs to launch Classic Plus already. Or at least tease it. I just need an announcement. Just give me an announcement.
More major updates, and the raiding population has started to seriously drop now as well, so it's not literally the end, but the reasons why people were playing it are now going to stop happening. Seasonal stuff in Classic has been interesting, but it's not been very, well, seasonal. The clue's kind of in the name, seasonal, as in it will last a few months. Seasonal stuff in Classic has lasted for years at a time. And Blizzard have said many times that Season of Discovery was a bit of a testing ground to see what people did or didn't like, and they definitely went all out with massive changes. But in the end, Season of Discovery became more than just a seasonal server. It was the closest thing Classic has ever been to being a traditional MMO. There was content being released that we had never heard of, there was active class balancing, there were things to find out within the game, and there wasn't 20 years of min-max on every single little detail. And I think the fact that SOD recovered from a big player loss in Phase 3 and maintained a consistent player base afterwards shows that people want Classic to be a traditional MMO once again as well. Every other version of Classic always has tons of people come back for a patch, and then things drop off pretty quickly. I think that advanced knowledge of what's coming,
knowing what's coming is what makes Classic safe and a good game for a lot of people. But the reason people like Season Discovery was not knowing what was coming, being excited for the future, hyping up the what, the next, the who, the why. And when SOD ended, it was like a dream got shattered. It's like the glass fell and broke, and a lot of people were left completely disillusioned, completely frustrated, completely like left behind. And they were just, honestly, I'm gonna be real, they were just upset about the whole situation, because what they wanted versus what they got is two completely separate experiences, and it just wasn't the smoothest, greatest experience for a lot of people. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Season Discovery was the perfect, ideal MMO, because it wasn't, right? It did a lot of things wrong. But it was a testing ground for Classic Plus, which should be a traditional MMO. But Willie's not wrong on the facet of Classic is an MMO. Classic is a series of seasons in the hopes that you play something and you just keep jumping from one season to another season to another season. And that is, in my opinion, poor design. But until they release Classic Plus, what else can they do?
Means that people don't get as invested as they typically would in an MMO. And I think again there are a few reasons why this is happening. One is lack of class balancing. I think for some people they like locking in their class at the start of the expansion and just knowing they're going to be good. For other people it's kind of boring when there's never any changes. It's these classes are good, these are bad. If you enjoy playing this class, sorry, bad expansion, come back in a year and a half. That doesn't feel great. People aren't playing for collection or completionism as much as we went over a bit before, and we're also getting to that crossover point where even back in the day there was a lot of content on YouTube and being streamed for these types of games, so even though you may not have played it directly, you may have watched a bunch of it and got a good impression of what you think of it already. Ironically, people play Modern Classic more like a seasonal realm where they play their patch a bit and then there's a drop off, and they played the seasonal realm more like a traditional MMO. We know Blizzard are working on more original classic content, and I'm just hoping it's something more permanent this time. Seasons for WoW have been great, but seasons end and MMOs don't end. Well, at least if they don't fail, that is. I have seen people popping up asking for a fresh for SOD as well, and you know, there's always some appeal in fresh. I do get it, whether it's at the start of the expansion or something entirely new.
Who's in Willie's comment section asking for SOD fresh? Is it you, Kago? Is Kago in Willie's comment section asking for fresh? Probably Kago. But no, like overall, SOD is good. SOD fresh would be relatively fun. But like a lot of people are jumping the retail of MMOs because he's right. An MMO shouldn't end if the MMO has budget and successful. And by every metric, SOD was successful. SOD could have kept going. SOD could have kept being played. SOD could have kept being enjoyed. There was no reason for SOD to have ended. But I understand why they ended it. If it was only a test from the beginning, an alpha beta, it was always expected to end. And despite the season being in the name, people were so disillusioned that they let it shatter their whole worldview. It truly did fuck everybody up really badly.
But it's just going to end up how every fresh does, with way more metagaming, people playing the patch and then dropping off, people wanting faster phases, people getting bored more easily, and just not engaging in non-endgame content nearly as much. Which brings me to our next version of WoW to talk about, Anniversary Realms. So Anniversary are the epitome of fresh being popular, and they are a bit of a weird one. Honestly, I'm still surprised at how well Anniversary Realms have done. I'd be curious to know how many people are playing Anniversary now who feel as though they missed out in 2019, how many people are coming back who played 2019, and how many people are entirely new to Classic WoW. If I had to guess, the bulk of the player base would be people who play every single fresh. And we do have TBC planned for Anniversary as well, so there is something to look forward to in the future as well, but I think it'll just be plagued by the issues that every single fresh is. TBC is pretty hyped to see again, I'm not gonna lie, especially going through the Dark Portal, but I remember playing that expansion in Classic, and there was a lot of raid logging, probably a bit too much of it for my liking. And then we have Error at the side, which is kind of doing.
This is something I've actually been kind of worried about for TBC Anniversary, is that when we get to TBC, it's going to be the exact same thing we're dealing with right now, in the sense that with TBC, it's hype. The hype leading up to it is hype. When the game drops, the first month is amazing. Then it's raid log meta till the end of TBC, because you know everything, you know how to grind, what to play, how to play, you need the exact amount of gold you need for A, B, C, D, and E, you know the consumes you'll need, you know the enchantments and the gems. Every part of TBC has been figured out, min-maxed, just to the slightest T. Everybody's figured everything out. And in my opinion, I'm actually worried that TBC is going to have the exact same issues as Anniversary, in that the first month or two of TBC is top tier, and then it falls right off a fucking cliff and the hype is gone. I'm not saying retail's a better game, but retail figured out a way to get a huge portion of the player base to do secondary, tertiary content, collecting pet battles, Mythic Plus, you know, transmog runs, mount collecting, like so many different avenues of random gameplay to keep you playing. Whereas in Classic, once your goal is done, you're done. And I don't want Classic to be like retail, But we were at this point where Classic needs to become a traditional MMO that isn't known and data mined and fully fresh, like fledged out, completely and utterly known down to the slightest team.
Its own thing. It doesn't have any updates either, which isn't very MMO-like whatsoever, but it's also not being played in a seasonal way because of this as well. And whilst it doesn't need to live off hype, Era is maintaining a pretty healthy and consistent player base. In fact, since Season of Discovery has quote-unquote ended now, it's seen a rise in the amount of people on it. I think Blizzard are setting up the system so eventually there will be an Era realm for TBC and Wrath as well. It's just that Anniversary needs to progress through those before we will get them.
Yeah, that's my theory as well. It's my conspiracy theory. I've said this in a few other videos of mine, but I'm pretty sure they're setting up for the Era realms. They might do it every 5-year reset fresh, vanilla, TBC, Wrath, resetting, and then over again. Every 5 years you get to play all three. But at the same time, it's still not a traditional MMO. It's just there so everybody can play their favorite version of the game forever and not have to worry about it or wait for a play on private servers, because private servers are very popular still to this day.
I think overall I can see the appeals in different versions of the game, but for me I'm definitely ready for Classic to come together and to be a proper MMORPG again, with the consistent servers, updates we don't know about from day one, active class balancing, an evolving story, and just all the usual things you should expect. People are definitely used to playing and replaying Classic, and there's definitely an audience for that which exists, and I hope that audience continues to get what they want in terms of Era servers and Anniversary realms progressing, but I don't think it's a growing audience. I think that Era, Anniversary, and all these freshes are attracting the same people again and again. At some point we're going to need some new people, or maybe people who are interested enough from other MMOs or even retail to check the game out for what it is now. For me, I don't get as hyped about replaying the same fresh again and again because nothing's been added, nothing's changed. When I replayed the first trilogy of expansions, I really did everything that I wanted to, and that was primarily for each one, doing all the PvE content and leveling all the classes to maximum level, because all I did back in the day was PvP. For me, Fresh is kind of not really that different from going back and replaying any single player game again and again, because you know exactly what to expect, where and when, you know the twists in the stories and what's going to happen in the future. Obviously MMOs are multiplayer, right, but you know what I mean with the idea. And when Classic Plus happens, how many freshes have Blizzard run us through right now? We've had 2019 Classic, Season of Mastery, Hardcore servers, Season of Discovery, and Anniversary. That's 5 fresh starts. Well, up to 5 depending on how many you played, but I bet even some of the more dedicated players are getting that feeling that maybe...
I also did Arcanine Reaper. I didn't do Deviate the Light, but I know a bunch of people did that. I know there were 2 other like relaunch movements as well. So for some people it's 7, 8 replays of Classic. At a certain point, and there's also 2 hardcores. You have 20th Anniversary, and then you also have 20th Anniversary Hardcore as well. So there's so many variations of Fresh that I will say it has definitely lost its appeal to a huge portion of the player base.
They don't want to repeat all of those same steps again and again when they've already done them so many times. In fact, I almost think it's going to be risky for Blizzard to play it safe on the Classic Plus launch with any updates to the base game, because so many of us have seen them so many times in a row now. It's really awkward because I want them to start slow with Classic Plus, and I absolutely think they should, but I think if people get in the game, they're trying it out, and it's not really that different from how vanilla usually is, I'm not sure who the game's really going to be for, because the Fresh crowd may not want as many changes, whilst the Classic Plus crowd might think it's too similar to the original format. Quite the conundrum. The wait appears to...
I'm gonna be real. Controversial opinion incoming. People may dislike me for what I'm about to say. Classic Plus should not be for the Classic Era Andes. The Classic Era Andes of Classic Era. Classic Plus should be for the huge portion of players that want some quality of life. They want new content, they want some class balance, they want new things, new reputations, professions, content, grinds, but don't want all of retail. Classic Plus should be, honestly, somewhere like TBC, but built into Classic to a degree. That's not the perfect explanation, but it should not be for the Classic Era Andes. It should not be for the Classic Era anything. They have their game. Classic Plus should not be for them.
still be pretty long for Classic Plus, but for myself, I think I'm playing WoW pretty casually until that happens. I'm just ready for my favourite game to be a real MMORPG once again. Are you? Let me know in the comments below. And, as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Another banger Willy video. There'll be a description. There'll be a link in the description down below. Go subscribe to him if you haven't yet. Great content creator. He's like a new Mad Season show if you think about it. He just makes more content. He covers all the little things, all the big things. He does like the videos he does. It's like he's very much he does good content. So it's always fun to watch and react to these things. So thank you, Willy. But I'm gonna be real. He's not wrong. I want a forever game mode. I want an MMO, a continuation, an experience that isn't going to end. There's no predilection towards it being a finished, finalized game. I want retail's unending nature, but in Classic's ecosystem and Classic's gameplay and drive. So that's what I want. But thank you all for watching. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you hated it, understandable. Dislike and subscribe and be a dedicated hater. Thank you all for watching. I've been hard out. Peace.